So you finally get that break yesterday. How you feeling after that?
Well, I mean, we didn't have practice. I'm not sure I had a break. They got a good break, but those days are nice, right? Just to start preparing for watching yourself, your team, obviously thinking a lot about your team and getting ready for the games coming up, specifically Oklahoma State. And so I hope the guys feel better. They're always meeting with Trevor, athletic trainer, and getting updates with those guys and doing what they have. It's an on-time thing, and that was one thing. After the last thing we finished with is just make sure you're deliberate with what you're doing with your mobility training. Hydration, get plenty of sleep. These guys think they can go to bed at 2 in the morning and wake up at whatever time and be fine, and it all impacts. Being the very best that you can be, especially when you get to this time of year. After this coming Saturday's game, we're halfway through league, and we'll be in February, and it's a tough time. You just got to keep going, because you don't have those. In most leagues, you have that one full week where you have I don't know, it's not a bye, but you have the week between games, and it's not like that here. So you just really, really got to be on point with that stuff. And taking the best care of your body that you possibly can. And there's no perfect formula to stay injury-free, of course, but you got to do everything that you can. So I think it was really good for our guys to just, free themselves mentally for a day and not have to worry about film or anything else.
Craig, this year you've had Lawson kind of used to help set up your offense up at the top of the key. What kind of advantages do you see with that instead of maybe having him down closer to the post, or what has kind of been that advantage?
Yeah, there's a lot. I think I'm gonna start with this. Like the traditionalists, right, would always be like, oh, what, you're 7 feet tall, you need to be around the basket, all that kind of stuff. And obviously, the game, the game has really evolved. Some good, maybe some not so good, quite frankly. But I think you just try to take advantage of what he's really, really good at. Now, he's certainly gotten better around the basket, scoring. He's gotten a lot more aggressive. He's gotten a lot stronger. It's just funny, even when you watch some of the games from a year ago to today with some of the common opponent, like the Iowa game, watching him a year ago, even in the NIT, how different his body is. He's clearly a thicker guy, clearly is stronger, clearly playing with more force. But I've always told Lawson this, and sometimes guys it's easy for a lot of players just to want to score, and their identity becomes that. Whether it's your parents, trainers, family, media, like whatever, because it's the quote unquote sexy thing. It's what everybody thinks you should do, and there's just a lot of ways to impact winning. And like I've always told he's very natural at a few things. One, he's a really good passer and decision maker. I mean, whether he's 7 foot or 6 foot, like he has elite vision. He really sees the floor at a high level, and he can deliver it on time, on target. So now you theoretically are giving your perimeter guys an extra advantage by being able to play him out on the perimeter and doing some things. And then just his feel for, and I know you didn't ask this, but his feel for spacing and timing on both sides of the ball. But he just has an innate ability to guard two guys at one time. He's a really good pick and roll defender. He's a really good post defender. I think he's really good on that end. Now, he doesn't always wow people with his ability just to, rise above the backboard or the rim or whatever it might be, but he just doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes. And the way our team is kind of built, we got to be able to take advantage of what he can do out on the perimeter with his decision making and his ball handling.
Craig, the strength of your team was the depth, the number of players that you felt comfortable with. But in Big 12 play, a lot of other programs are, narrowed things down to 7 or 8 man rotations. How do you go about fine tuning your rotations with the depth that you have?
I mean, I've said this on record, many times, and we've tried to trim it down. Like the other night, we played 10. And it's interesting. There's a few teams out there that are playing 11 guys. I mean, Cincinnati is one of them. Oklahoma State will play 10, 11 guys. I think they're top 10 in the country in bench scoring. And then Baylor's had a bunch of injuries, so they're playing 7 guys, but the 7th guy's getting about 7 minutes. You know what I mean? So, I think we've really kind of dialed it in with who we are. And then it just kind of depends on the night with a couple guys. we have had some foul issues with a couple guys in particular, so we've had to extend. And then the other night, I forget who asked about Ezra. He played 16 minutes. I was surprised. I didn't look at that after the game, and I was surprised when you said that. He was so good because I bet he played 12 in the first half, maybe 11. But then he turned it over a few times, and then he had his fourth foul, and then our guys were really clicking. So it was, so it's a little bit of a. I feel very, I think we settled into about 8 guys or so, and then that 9th guy just kind of depends on the night, depending on the look in their eyes a little bit and how they're performed. So I feel like we've got a lot more comfortable with who we're playing and what we're doing, and I think our guys are really figuring out more like their roles. You know what I mean? I think it's easy to see that and easy to feel that, with maybe the exception of one game here since we played Oklahoma State, quite frankly, the last time around. So it is amazing, though. I was just telling our staff this yesterday on the phone, and with a couple of our meetings, how much teams can change, during the course of the year. So I feel like we've changed some here in the last 3 weeks specifically. Oklahoma State has changed some since we played them last time. It's just you're constantly evolving, whether it's personnel, your scheme, right? You're just who's playing more minutes, who's playing less minutes. It's just amazing how much things can change even just in a 3-week span.
Just going back to that Oklahoma State game, I think Ezra had 21 that night, and he's been really consistent since then. Your guys' post, you were able to attack really well in the post against them. Just what do you remember about that game, and kind of what challenges are they going to present when you go there this Saturday?
Yeah, I watched it this morning. They're really athletic. They play a lot of guys. They play 11 guys. They had a tough game last night. I haven't watched that one yet. But they have a lot of depth. They can play a lot of different ways. That's one thing sometimes when you're getting prepared for teams that do play a lot of guys, it's like you can play a lot of different ways depending on the night. And so you got to be prepared for a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, when you do play a lot, you just got to really know their personnel. We're very personnel-orientated defensively. So, what is their strength? And we got to take that away, right? What are they maybe weak at, and try to get them to, quote-unquote, beat you, in that way. That hurt us a little bit against Cincinnati in the first half. Some guys were dropping in threes that hadn't shot it very well, but you got to make them, kind of beat you in that respect. So they play incredibly hard. They turn you over. Like, that's where, when we played them last time, we took care of the ball at a high level. And we all know that's been a bit of an issue for us. We've been up and down in that category. So it's going to come down to that. We gave up way too many offensive boards. They didn't make us pay, fortunately for us. So that was the silver lining in it. But, it seems to be a common thing. We have got to take care of the ball, and we have to rebound and handle their pressure because they get after you. 1 through 5, depending on the lineup, but 1 through 4 at all times. So we got to be really good that night. And we played really well that night. We had a lot of synergy. We had a lot of spunk to us. We were at home, and Oklahoma State clearly, like most teams in the country, but specifically Oklahoma State, they're a way better team at home than they have been on the road. And so we have to have a great mentality going into this game.
Speaking of home, last week you said this is a rare homestand for your team the last 2 games. How do you think that having 2 games back-to-back at home maybe kind of reset this team, grounded this team as you get ready to hit February?
It's always good to play at home. It's weird we haven't been on a plane for a week and a half, which was normal in the Pac-12. So just getting back on home, obviously the Baylor game, we weren't perfect. We missed a lot of shots that night. Did we miss a lot of point-blank shots. Just rewatching it, it was just like, oh, my goodness. You know what I mean? We had every opportunity to win that game, but we didn't. And I liked our resolve and the way we bounced back against Cincinnati. Of course, a close game. We probably made it a little closer than it needed to be down the stretch, but at the same time, it's always good when you win those games. And, Gabe made a couple big shots, got to the foul line 8 times, I think 6 in the last 2 minutes, and went 5 for 6 from the line. So it was great, but it's always good to be at home. But now, obviously, 3 of the next 4 are on the road. And so you got to have some real mettle to get on the road and find ways to get W's.
Rebounding seems like it's been much more consistent this year than maybe your last few.
Yeah.
How has that benefited you this year, and kind of what's changed the emphasis of being able to be able to do that on a night-to-night basis?
Well, listen, 2 years ago, we were a really good rebounding team. Marco Anthony playing a lot of the 3 spot. So just you have a hybrid, athletic, versatile guy. And when you have 3, 4s, and 5s that can rebound, BC wasn't like the greatest rebounder that year at the 5, but Ben could go to rebound. Marco could really rebound. Raleigh could really rebound. But then last year, we were basically playing, especially once Raleigh got hurt. I mean, you're playing Cole, Gabe, and Davon could go get a rebound at the point guard position. But, you're essentially playing 2 Ray Allens out there, right, at the wing. It's the truth, right? And so they're catch and shoot guys. They're not necessarily, now they're position rebounders, they'll box out most of the time, but they're not just going to be able to go get a 50-50 ball and go. And so, listen, going into this year, from the get-go, I told our staff when we were recruiting, we're not playing this way. I'm done playing, because everywhere I've been, whether it's Mayville, South Dakota, Utah State, we were elite on that was, if you had to say what do my teams do? We rebound. You know what I mean? It's just what we did. We were 2 years at Utah State, top 5 in the country, right? And maybe we broke national records, and it's NAI and all that, but it's what we did. Our teams rebound, so it was driving me nuts. It really was, because it just felt like that's not what I believe in. You know what I mean? And so, so all summer, and I know I've said this and but it was Jake at the 3 and KD some at the 3 and some at the 4, and we were playing big, right? And then so I do feel so long and the short, we've been better on the glass. The Houston-Baylor week was a tough week. The best 2 teams in our league at offensive rebounding. And so they made us pay a little bit. We didn't get to the glass like we needed to consistently, but certainly we have. And I don't think it's the emphasis. I just think it's playing Jake at 6'10" at the 3, who's a very good rebounder, and KD is a really good rebounder. And so playing him at the 3, and then of course at the 4, and then you add a guy like Ezra, who I still think can be a lot better rebounder for us. But the other night he had 5 offensive boards, hard to do. Lawson's a really positional guy. Caleb's a very good rebounder. So we have a lot of guys that can go do it. Miro at the point guard spot can go get a rebound. And so we tried to recruit to it. We always emphasize it. It's always one of the keys to a game. But I just think KD and Jake playing the 3 has really helped us on both sides of the ball.
On Ezra, you've got veterans in Gabe and Lawson that have been here for a couple years now, but Ezra has seemed to embrace a leadership role with the team, being vocal, and with his sort of just the way that he is, the confidence that he possesses. How beneficial is that to the squad?
Well, I haven't told him this yet. I did tell you this after the game on Saturday night. We had a really healthy discussion on what would have been Sunday after the Baylor loss, and Ezra said some really good things in that meeting without being necessarily called upon, and so he has a lot of leadership traits to him. He really cares. He's has enough self-awareness to he's kind of stepped back early on just to feel everything out. Big transition for him, moving from Atlanta to Salt Lake City in a lot of respects. And so, but he's really finding himself, I think, as a player and as a person. And, it's easy for people to look at these guys as just basketball players or whatever. These guys are humans. They're 18 to, 24-year-olds. They're going through a very pivotal moment in their life, growing from a young man to a man and finding out who they are and what they are. And this is what I was going to say, what I'm going to say during film today. When you watch the game, and I always watch the TV copy, and man, you could hear his voice on that floor that night. I've never heard him like that. Now he also did it in practice on Monday. So, but it needs to be a consistent thing, right? And his voice was high level, and his multiple efforts were really good, and he's figuring things out. He's growing up in front of our eyes, so to speak, because he's not making a lot of the mistakes he was making in November, December, and quite frankly, even early January. So his game is evolving and he's growing, and it's really rewarding to see, and our team needs it.
You mentioned his game is evolving. What can he continue to add to his game? You know, he made a 3-pointer in the game
Yeah.
early, and what else can he add to
Yeah, I think eventually he's going to get there, because when you watch his form, like it's pretty solid. Like, you know what I mean? It's not. So I think that's going to be, as we go through the off season and next year, I think he'll get a lot better at that, where he's just comfortable at it. Obviously, his free throw percentage, I'm confident he's going to get that figured out. I really am. I have no doubt in my mind with that. So that, I think, is just going to keep going as his career goes. But I just think consistency and steadiness, you know what I mean, and just his communication, because he does have a great voice and he's got the respect of the locker room, and just, you know, simplicity, right? Just jumping to the ball, taking care of the ball. You know, sometimes he had such a great start to that game. I mean, oh my gosh, like I forgot. I think he had 9 or 11 in the first, whatever it was. And then I thought in the second half he tried to do a little too much. He was feeling it. He had a good thing going. His intention was really good, but you gotta value that ball. You know, he just had a couple of just mindless kind of turnovers where I know what he sees, but then you got to execute it, right? And so, but the sky's the limit for him, and it's going to be a big offseason for him. And I'm very confident that he'll put the time in, you know, to make it happen. All right, thank you.